Today I'm doing a brief video on setting up a Kahler fixed bridge, and it will be a Kahler 7300, which is part of the hybrid series, although this is the one of the hybrid series that is not changeable from a tremolo to a fixed, where the other ones in the series sort of lock out. This one is just a straight fixed one, and really its purpose is just as a less expensive version of the other Kahler fixed bridge 3300 series. So this is the 7300 series. The guitar I'm using for the demonstration is an Ibanez RG series made in Indonesia. And this particular model is the RGR 421 EXFM, and as you can notice from the serial number, it says I07 and the rest of the numbers. So this neck was made in Indonesia in 2007. So my goal today is I would like to raise the action just a tiny bit on the 6th string. Currently it's about, if you look at it off of the 23rd and 24th fret, it's about approximately 1.8 millimeter off the frets, the 6th string is. And usually I like it between 1.8 and 2.0 millimeter. 1.8 on the 6th string, in my opinion, is about the lowest you should have it if you've got a perfect setup and the truss rod just right, all the frets leveled appropriately and everything. So I'm gonna raise that just a tiny bit, maybe go from 1.8 to 1.9 millimeter off, because there's just a bit of buzz. You're always gonna have a little bit of buzz on the lower frets on a guitar if it's set up low, but I like it to have least amount of buzz possible. And then what I'm going to do next, let's see, and then she'll also, you have to check to see if the truss rod adjustment is appropriate, is you need to not touch the string. You come here and see if it's about the same on the 11th fret, and I checked it earlier and it was. So what we're looking at is it's already about 1.8 millimeter or so, so shouldn't have to do much adjustment to the truss rod, if at all. Today, my goals for this particular guitar are to raise just the 6th string, maybe 1/10 of a millimeter, and then drop the 1st string about 1/10 of a millimeter. So very small amount of adjustment. If you're going to heavier strings, say you're going to like a regular top heavy bottom thing like 10 to 52 from like a more standard set, you're going to want to, with the thicker strings, you're going to want to lower, say, the 5th and the 6th strings a tiny bit, maybe 1/10 of a millimeter or so. Maybe drop the 4th string a little bit, and then the others, it just kind of depends on the feel on the first 3 strings, whether you're getting any buzz, whether you like the string height for bending off the 1st string and whatnot. So kind of depends on your personal preference. But anyway, what you will notice on the Kahler is you have the adjustment. You basically have a full range of adjustments within the sides of going side to side. So here you'll see I have the 6th string all the way to the side of the adjustment area, and for this particular guitar and this particular neck, that seems to work well. And when doing a little bit of vibrato on the 6th string, there doesn't seem to be a problem with the string falling off the edge of the neck. And then on this side, if you'll notice, the spacing is not all the way to the end, given the neck width on this guitar being 56 millimeter at the 24th fret and 43 millimeter up at the nut. For this guitar, that seems to work well. If it's all the way to the side, the string can come off a little bit during vibrato. And I've also had the same issue on my 1986 Jackson Soloist, where I have a Kahler fixed bridge on there, the original 3300, and that one I don't have it all the way to the side either. Actually, I think I have it a tad bit off of the side on this one as well, but you know, it's really specific to individual guitars. So that's what I arrived at for this one. Now, the up and down height adjustments of the individual saddles is with this Allen wrench, or basically using an Allen wrench to adjust the height of this, like Allen bolt or whatever you want to call it, Allen screw, and it's the same all the way across. Now, before you do a height adjustment, you have to loosen the saddle. It's the first thing you do before you do anything else, is you loosen the saddle, and it is the Allen bolt / Allen screw that's down here, and all of these. So because I'm already liking the width of all of these, I really only have to loosen the ones that I'm going to adjust. So for right now, I'm just going to loosen the 6th and the 1st. And I might actually loosen the 2nd and drop that one down a tiny bit too, because I actually want to lower that string just a little bit now that I think of it. So, but if you're going to do side-to-side adjustments, you know, you basically want to make all of them loose so that they're movable. But again, before you do anything with the saddle, that's the first thing you do, because if you went and instead started trying to adjust the height and this isn't loose, you're going to have problems. Number one, it's not going to move up or down, and then if you try and force it in whatever, it can just cause issues that you don't want. So, and then the one other adjustment too, you loosen the Phillips head if you're going to do a front and back adjustment of the saddle. And the reason that you do that is for intonation purposes. So let's say if you're going to a heavier string on the 6th and the 5th, you're probably going to end up needing to move this saddle back like a tiny amount, maybe like, you know, 0.1, 0.2 millimeter, to make sure that it intonates correctly. Now, a lot of people do the super quick and dirty intonation adjustment where they just do, you know, a harmonic on the 12th fret and then fret that note and so forth. Now, that's a rough estimate, but it doesn't get you that close. Now, so for me, I also, when I'm adjusting the intonation on, say, the 5th and 6th strings, I'm really concerned with, you know, the notes on the 5th fret, the 3rd fret, and whether those are sharp or flat. So, you know, if you tune it up and, you know, you do your 12th fret harmonic and that note and it looks straight on, but then you know, fret here in the way that you normally fret, which hopefully relatively lightly, because, you know, you don't want to push down so much that it unnaturally makes it go sharp. But if you fret this and it's sharp or flat, you've probably got an intonation problem. Then you can also check the 3rd fret. These two, you know, you want to have in. Now, it's never going to be perfect all the way up and down. In order to get absolutely perfect on a guitar, you have to use true temperament frets that are all like squiggly frets that like Steve Vai uses, and it's just not very practical. But you know, plus you have to have a really good ear to be able to hear it. However, you know, for being able to play, you know, an A and a G and things like that, you want these to be intonated properly. So, you know, you lightly depress this, you check it with your tuner, and if it's not straight on an A after you've tuned this straight on, the 6th string straight on to an E, if it's sharp, then you need to move you need to loosen this Phillips screw, move this back that way, like I said, 1/10 of a millimeter, 2/10 of a millimeter. If it's flat, you go the other way. So if say the A or the G are flat when you fret them, and the E and the sixth string is tuned perfectly to E, then you have to bring this forward a bit. And that goes for all the strings all the way across. Same thing. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. So today, because I've got this well intonated and everything else, I'm not changing string gauge, I'm not going to loosen the Phillips screws and move these saddles forward or back because I don't need to. I'm just going to adjust the height a little bit. But also though, it's the same thing with the Phillips. Before you loosen that and adjust it back and forth, the saddle you're adjusting, you have to loosen it down here at the bottom first, or you're going to have a lot of problems with things stripping out and other issues, and instability and whatever. So that's how that goes. So anyway, I guess we'll get to it now. But yeah, for changing from a more standard set to a heavier bottom set, I would assume fifth and sixth strings, you're going to have to, if it's already intonated properly, you have to just come back a tenth or 2/10 of a millimeter this way, just a tiny amount each way. And then you can always, after you tune it to pitch, adjust everything, you're sure everything's good the way you want it, you can always then loosen the strings and just move this forward or back to get your intonation correctly. All right, hope that makes sense. So now the Allen wrench that you use is a 0.050 inch Allen key, which is relatively rare. And actually, I didn't even realize that I had that in this little StewMac toolkit, because none of my other Allen sets has that size. But you notice that 0.50 all the way over there on the left, and then the whole numbers are obviously millimeter and so forth. But I got this thing about 6 months ago. I got like on sale from StewMac for like $29 or something. It's pretty cool, and they're pretty nice tolerances on these, because when I broke out my other Allen keys that I had been using this morning, I broke out this 0.501 and I put it in here to test on the first string. And one of the things to do is basically wiggle it a little bit once it's in to see if it's tight. And you know what? It's kind of got quite a bit of wiggle. And what happens from that is after it starts to wear, it starts to get, there it is. It starts to get rounded a little bit on the end. And then the problem is loosening and tightening, you can start to strip out the Allen bolt and start to get rounded. And then you're in trouble, because these, basically, I don't even think you can get one separate. I think you have to buy a whole new saddle, and they kind of charge a lot for a whole new saddle. I mean, I gotten this bridge on sale for cheap, and those saddles are really expensive. Plus, you have to take the whole thing apart and replace the saddle, and it's a hassle. So, if you notice now, well, earlier I did a test on this, and I put in this one from the StewMac set, and I try to wiggle it, and there's basically no wiggle. It's completely tight. So this is the one I want to use to loosen it. I mean, it'll wiggle back and forth like this, but if you actually try to turn it, there's no wiggle. Well, the other one, there's play. So that's the one I'm going to use. All right, and then let's see. Here is the instrument to turn it. So I will just go ahead and finally get down to doing this of what we need to do. And I will, hold on, go ahead and just twist this until, there, it popped loose. Turn just a little more, it's loose, right? So I'm going to adjust that one. So that's loose now, because I'm going to lower that one a tiny bit. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and lower the second string one just a tiny bit also. So loosen that also. And see, now they freely move. That one doesn't freely move up and down. Let me do that again. I didn't get it loose enough. There we go. Now it freely has some drag, but if you hold the rest, it moves. So it moves easily. Actually, loosen this a tiny bit more. Maybe just a little stiff from sweat from the hand getting in there or something. I don't know. Anyway, and then I come over to the sixth string, which I want to raise just a tiny bit. I'm not going to raise the fifth because it doesn't really have any buzz. It's just this one has a tiny bit. And then I check this one, and as you can see, that's now nice and loose. All right. So after that, now it's actually then the height adjustment one is the same size Allen bolt. So I'll just put this in here. Let me seat it in first. Make sure I'm not turning it when I seat it. Just carefully in there. Okay. Then I go and look at the heights. Yeah, and I want to just raise this just a tiny bit. Go ahead and do that and look at it, and so that move just a little bit. You don't want, I don't want much. I just want like very small amount. Might have even been a little too much, but I'll figure that out later. And then the first string, push that down in, and then I will loosen it, turn it counterclockwise, loosen it just a little bit. There we go. And then this one even a tiny bit less than that. Listen, even just like that. Oop. Yeah, that might have been too much too, but that's okay. And then also notice though, these things become movable like back and forth after you loosen that bottom one too. And we want to make sure, I want to make sure that I didn't accidentally push this one all the way to the end, which I didn't. But I also want to push them back down after I went and attempted to drop them a little bit. And that's good, that's good. And then the spacing between them looks pretty good, looks pretty equidistant. I just want to check that. All right. One other tip though that I find on Kahler fixed bridges is that, if you've got, relatively light first string, like a 9 or a 10, usually this happens more with 9s. Like I've got a hybrid set on this, is 9 to 46. It's this D'Addario EXL 125 set, and then it says 10p because I got them in a 10 pack, like a pack of 10 for like $39 from Amazon or something. But with 9s, a lot of times you're going to have to come almost to the end of the play of the saddle where it's almost all the way forward. So when you loosen this and then you tighten it back down, when you get near the end of the adjustment forward, you have to be careful, because when you tighten it down, if you still feels like it'll move back or forth or side to side, then you've probably got it at the limit of how far you can come forward. You might want to move it back a tiny bit, otherwise it's not going to be stable. And you'll have problems with it moving, while you're playing and whatnot. So anyway, that's about it. So I'm going to look at these, and as you saw, yeah, see this one now moves back and forth too because the bottom part's loosened, but I dropped a little bit, so I'm going to move it back to here, get it equidistant. It's where I want it, and now I'm just going to go ahead and tighten it back down. Although really I should be holding it while I'm tightening it back down, and there we go. That's it. And then now the whole out moves with the whole thing, which is what you want in the end. And it's all the way down, it's good. And then same thing down here, I'll push these down. Look at the width between those saddles and make sure there's still that gap on the end that I want a little bit. And I go ahead and just in here, push it down, tighten it down. Not too much though, because there are small bolts. You don't want to strip anything out, because that's pretty, it's a big problem if you do that. And this one, look at the width. It's already kind of grabbing on the other ones, but I'll make sure these are all pushed down appropriately. Cut that gap on the end. And we'll tighten it. It's good. It's all the way down. They move together, and there's no side-to-side movement. I move like this. It doesn't move in here. So if it did, this might be tight enough, or it might be too far forward. Check this one, all feels secure. And then to get ready to put strings on, just loosen up the fine tuners to be able to then get the ball end in easily before you pull it over. And then once all the strings are on, you just kind of tighten the fine tuners to where it starts to move the strings just a tiny bit, and just stop, do that all the way across, and you're good to go. So I think that's about it for now. This is just the basics. We're just adjusting this bridge. Obviously, we didn't get into adjusting, you know, the truss rod. You normally want to do that, like say if your measurement here at the 23rd, 24th fret is much different than on the 11th fret. Like if the 11th fret, the string's higher off the fretboard, you need to tighten the truss rod so that it flattens out a little bit. If it's lower than it is down here, like say if this is 1.8 and this is like 1.4, you need to loosen to get a little bit of bow back in it, because if you don't, it's going to really buzz down on the lower frets. So anyway, don't want to get into that too much in this video, because the main purpose was just showing how to do the basics of adjustment on a Kahler fixed bridge, and I hope I did a decent job on that.